Hi friends, it's Becky, and I want to make a pair of earrings with you today. For the month of April, I had challenged myself to make a pair of earrings every day. And so for today, I'm going to be making some earrings using some of the components from the April Showers Bargain Bead Box. So I've got a little piece of raindroppy heaven right here that I'm going to be making with y'all. I'm using one of these chandelier components, the stainless steel. I'll be using one of these disco ball sort of guys with the frosted tips. I have some of these crystal drops in AB, and then I've got these briolets as well. They're going to be something that I use to make kind of a sparkly head pin as we go through here for these drops and for these things. And I'm also going to be using a couple of these bead caps for this project. For my tools that I'm going to be using, I've got some round nose pliers and some chain nose pliers. I've also got some flush cutters that I'm going to be using, and I'm going to be using two different sizes of craft wire for this. I'm going to be using 26 gauge for my drop parts and 22 gauge for my link up at the top. You can use 26 gauge for both, but I like making my links with 22 gauge, so I'll be using both of those. Alright, let's get started. Now, I wanted, when I was doing this, to make sure that the dangles and drops weren't crowded together. So we've got our fat parts of our dangles kind of offset that way. So I'm going to be adding the beads on in a specific order for each of these, and I'm probably going to be connecting from left to right so that I don't have to go from outside in or something like that when I do these. There's also these stainless steel things. They show fingerprints really well, so you can clean them off after you've made it, just to make it a little bit shinier, a little bit less smudged when you go to wear them. Alright, so for each of these drops, I'm going to be having one of these briolets at the bottom. And I'm just going to lay these out so you can see how I planned it. And then there's going to be two of these Malaysia jade. That's a dyed quartz rounds that we've got. These beautiful blue above all of them. And then there's going to be one of these fat bottom beads on each of these strands. And the top of it is where we get our variation for length. So on the ends it's going to be shorter. So on top of this drop, we're just going to have two of these guys. On the ones next to it, we'll have three of the Malaysia jade beads on each strand, and then the center one is going to be longer, so we're going to have one Malaysia jade and then another one of these drops, followed by another one of these, and then these final two are going to be my one at the top, just like this. So I'm going to be stringing them like that using my 26 gauge wire. Now to do this, I'm going to pull off about between 9 and 10 inches of wire. It might be a little bit more than you need, but I'd rather have a little bit more than not enough for this. I'm going to find the middle by holding the end together and just pulling down with my fingers so that I get a little bit of a dip there. And then we go through the briolet and holding it down there in that dip. I'm going to pull up on the wire and then pinch the sides so that the wire comes together. Right here at the bottom, just going to give it a little pinch and pull up. And then I'm not going to be wrapping this part. I'm going to leave it just like it is so that it kind of dangles and wobbles a little bit. It's going to add to some of the movement that you get with this as you're wearing it. And I want to put both ends of my wire through my Malaysia Jade rounds. So it sits there like that. And I'm just going to string all of these on here as we go. I was originally going to be using these components, at least one of them, for a focal for a necklace. And you could actually do this as a focal for a necklace instead of as earrings if you wanted to. Alright, so now that I've got my collection here, I'm going to grab my round nose pliers and make a loop. Gripping it right above the bead, and then I'm just tipping my round nose pliers back a little bit. I'm moving this actually a bit towards the middle of my round nose pliers because there's a little bit more space between the hole and the edge, especially here in the middle, but I just want to start how I mean to go on. So moving this over here so it bends, and then pushing it forward, opening my pliers, and then bringing my wire around. I'm not going to wrap it yet because I'm going to wrap it directly onto this component. Right, once it's on there, hold on to the loop part. And this will get progressively more awkward to do as I add more of these on here. It's like this first one. It's fine, there's nothing getting in the way. But as we add more, it'll get progressively more awkward. So I just cut off my excess wire after I wrapped the wire around my loop. And I'm just tucking in the little bits of wire that we're poking out with my chain nose pliers. And I'm going to basically do that same thing, but with these in that order that I created, all the way across this. So let's go ahead and do that. Alright, fold that in half. Is that going to be enough? It should be enough. That one might be a little bit shorter than I needed it to be. You know what? If it's shorter than I need it to be for that, I'm going to move it to the end and just get another length. There we go. I'm eyeballing how much wire I need. So we can just do it fairly quickly. Pushing with my fingers, I'm just doing a little pinch and then a little pinch. You can use, if you don't want to pinch with your fingers, you can use your pliers. Just be careful, especially near the end of the crystal, so you don't accidentally pinch too much and crack it. And this is actually a really fun and relaxing project. And I feel like this earring, it's very Suncatcher coated, and so I was thinking of like a Suncatcher on a rainy day. Rainy day Suncatcher or something like that. Just because it's so pretty and it's like raindrops going down in a blue sky with the blue behind it. I kind of love that a lot. Alright, so now that I've got my second one finished stacking, I can make my loop, doing it the same way, bending back, bring it around, rotate, and then bring it all the way around. I'm going to put this on here. You could equally use simple, well, I wouldn't use simple loops with this gauge of wire. In fact, You might be able to get away with 24 gauge wire for it. It's possible. More than that might not work. Reminded a little bit of when I first started jewelry making. I didn't know what kind of wire I needed or what would work for what I wanted to do, and I saw some tutorials for like wire working, and so I bought some wire, but it was 26 gauge wire instead of like what they were actually calling for, like 20 or 18 gauge. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, this wire is so weak, it doesn't work. It won't hold any shape. And the thing is 26 gauge wire is very useful wire for specific purposes. And I think I cut this one a little bit on the short side too. Alright, let's do it a little bit longer for the middle. But it is very useful for a lot of different applications. It's great for wrapping things onto thicker wire, and it's great for this kind of an application where you want it to be extra thin and extra bendy so that you're not forcing your beads onto wire that's too thick, and you can do two passes of wire through a bead at the same time. It's very helpful for that. But yeah, I think there were a lot of things I did accidentally by mistake when I first started out, especially when there were things that I did accidentally by mistake that worked out instead of being big problems, because, you know, nobody ever told me that you can't do that, and so I just did it anyway. I can't remember specifics, but there were just some things that were a little bit different from the normal way things get done. And I don't think that that is a bad thing. It's always great to have different outlooks, different perspectives on how things are done. I do love the way these look all stacked up. This is such a pretty box, and I'm so glad I'm finally getting some time to actually work on some more things with it. I would like to do more of them this weekend as well if I can. I had planned on doing an entire jewelry set yesterday, but I did not get a chance to do it, so we're just doing our earrings today. Because I really wanted to do these earrings. Okay, so this is where it starts getting tricky. I've got these wobbly bits over there, trying to hold it to the side. And another nice thing about using this finer gauge wire is that I can maneuver it around some of these without it being awkward or weird. Do you see how they offset each other? So they fit better together as they're dangling. They don't crowd each other or get in the way. That was the whole purpose for differentiating the placement of these smaller beads, so that we get more of a sort of chevron-y kind of a design with these drops as they go down, because the actual chandelier isn't chevron shape that's straight across, so I'm creating that with the beads on each of these strands. Alright, let's get these guys going. This one was the longer one. Already got these cut off. That's one of the good things for accidentally cutting something a little too short for the middle ones. Pinched. And one of the things that I do is this actually helps straighten out the wires a little bit when I'm holding it and then pulling my fingers along. It gets the kinks out so that you can string a little more easily onto your beads. I'm trying to get both ends of my wire through at once, which is why it's a little bit awkward, my stringing them. If it was a single wire, this would go a little bit faster. Not a lot faster, but that's okay. I think these were a really fun component to use. These rain clouds. I think one of the things that I have a tendency to do is wire wrap my briolets, and so it's nice to have a different way of using them. One that just lets all of the sparkle shine. There we go. Let's be awkward, guys. And one more. After we finish this lower part, we'll make the link that goes up on top that will link my chandelier with the ear wire. I love the sparkle. These are going to make me so happy to wear. I'm trying to be consistent with the direction that I add this from each time I do it. I think it doesn't matter which direction, as long as you're consistent with it. But yeah, when you do chandelier components like this, it's nice to lay out the beads so that you can make sure that you put them in the kind of order that will allow them to lay nicely. Alright, and now let's make a link. I'm going to be using some wrapped loops for this as well. I like to work off the spool when I do my wrapped loop links. This is 22 gauge wire that I'm using. So I'm going to put the beads that I have for my link on first. So I'm going to put on my little Malaysia jade round. a bead cap that is open and facing towards my larger bead. This fantastic sparkly guy right here. And then a bead cap that is, again, facing towards the largest sparkly bead. So open side up and then open side down. And then this guy right here. And then about 2 inches down from the end, I'm going to bend the wire over. You can bend it with this or with the round nose pliers. Doesn't really matter. And then I'm going to, about maybe 1/3 of the way from down the barrel, I'm just going to put my, you are confusing my, that way it can focus. I'm going to put this right here on the top, bring the wire around over the top, open the jaws and rotate it, and then push it all the way around. And that gives me a loop that is crossed over. I'm going to wrap this loop here, and the next loop we're going to wait to wrap once it's been created. So I'm just going to push this around. You can use your fingers to push it around the neck here, or another set of pliers, depending on how easy it is to move the wire, how your hands are feeling that day, and also how much leverage you've got. This one's pretty easy to move around though, so I just kind of left it like that. And this is why I work from the spool when I'm doing this, so that I don't have to overestimate how much wire I'm using. Once that's done, I push my beads up to the end, and then I measure 3 fingers down from there before I cut my wire. And I'm going to be cutting the wire, not my fingers. And now I need to make a second loop, so I'm turning this over, let gravity hold it in place, and I'm going to use my chain nose pliers and grip right above the bead. I usually use the pointy end of my round chain nose pliers, because otherwise I would make a really, really long bit of the bend if I went further down this barrel, and I don't need that much space there. But I do need some space for wrapping, so I'm just going to bend this over the top of there, and that does leave me some space for wrapping my loop. I'm going to take my round nose pliers, I'm going to put it right in the same place that I did before, bring it up and over, rotate these pliers, and bring it all the way around, just like I did before. But I'm not going to wrap my loop yet. I'm going to attach this to this part. So we go through here. I need to widen that out a little bit. Alright, and this part is a little bit awkward. I'm going to close that loop with pliers. Because this is rotating around there, it is more awkward to do this. This would be a good place to grab a second set of pliers to go around. Especially bent nose pliers, they would be able to get in here a little bit better than my fingers do. But it's okay though. Ultimately, it's okay. I'm going to cut off my excess wire. Tuck in that end of my wire. Take some time to tidy up those loops. There we go. Now I can add my ear wire. Swing open my loop on my ear wire. Add my earring. There we go. I got my Suncatchers on a rainy day. Alright, I'm going to put a link in the description below to my unboxing video for the Bargain Bead Box for April, as well as a link to the Bargain Bead Box site It is one of my favorite bead subscriptions. Great value for money. They label all of their metals correctly, and they always do a really, really beautiful job of curating these bead books. So I am always happy to open them, and they're a joy to work with. I hope y'all are having a fantastic week here on Hump Day, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of your week. Happy beading!